Cheryl from Woolswap. Today I'm bringing you Woolswap Chat number 4, and I am chatting to the lovely Cheryl from Natural Fibre Arts, who is a fantastic indie dyer that I've stumbled across years ago, and she lives up in the beautiful Sunshine Coast. And so we're going to have a chat with her. So hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Gail. How are you going today?
Good. Thanks for taking the time out, and look at the wonderful place where you live.
Thank you. It's my
Fantastic.
garden.
I know, it's so nice and peaceful. I live in the city, everyone, and this is amazing for me to see someone living in the country, and it looks great. Well, you are in the country, aren't you? Are you?
Yeah, we're actually north of the Sunshine Coast in Gympie at the moment. When I was on the Sunshine Coast and then we moved to Gympie, so I've just sort of kept it as the Sunshine Coast, but we're located in Gympie, which is really quite rural, a large town, but quite rural. And we may get some visiting dogs wandering past and birds, and who knows? Let's just see how we go.
Oh, fantastic. So I stumbled across Cheryl's lovely yarn years ago, and I don't know if she knows the story, but I first started knitting socks, and one of my friends said, can you make me a pair of kind of pinky, kind of something that's got pink and blue? Anyway, I went on Etsy and I found this beautiful sock yarn from Cheryl. And then I was hooked. And then, I've bought stuff regularly from her over the years. So if you haven't found, I will put a link to her store. She has a website now, so I'll put a link to her store down below. So go and check her out. But all right, so what inspired you to be an indie dyer, and how long have you been doing it for?
Well, I learned to knit years ago, like from my grandmother and my mum when I was just like 6 or 7 or something. And then, so that was a long time ago. We're not going to say exactly how long ago that was. And then back in 2008, my husband and I went over to live in Doha in Qatar. And I was homeschooling one of my kids back then. And one of the mums from the homeschool group said to me, do you want to come along to our knit night? And I thought, oh, really? And I said to her, can I bring my silk ribbon embroidery with me? Because at the time I was doing a lot of embroidery. And she said, yeah, sure, just come along. And it was more of a get to know people and, social sort of a thing. And we met every Monday night in somebody's home, and that person would provide the meal for the night. And so being so multicultural, we had some delicious food, and it was a great group. So from there, the first night I went along with my embroidery, and there was this lady sitting there knitting something on 4 needles, and I'd never seen that before. And I was like, what are you knitting? And it was socks on DPN. And I said, and so it sort of intrigued me. And so then I started knitting, and we couldn't really get very much knitting supplies like needles, good needles, or, anything that wasn't sort of acrylic while we're living in Doha. And so they used to order from the US. And so I raided a couple of people's stashes so I could get started straight away. They did some destashing for me, and I borrowed some needles, and I got started. And pretty soon I found indie dyed yarn, and then I just loved it. Like, I was like, oh, okay, indie dyed yarn and luxury yarns, alpacas and silks, and not just like acrylic stuff that I'd knit years ago with my grandmother and my mum. And we had this amazing marketplace there, the souks. And if you go into the spice markets down there, you can buy the most amazing things to do natural dyeing. And so I started out by doing natural dyeing. So you could buy that alum. Yeah, and I loved natural dyeing, but you could buy like the alum in the crystal rock form. Basically it's what you use for a natural deodorant, but you could buy it. And so I would sort of boil that down until it melted, and I'd use that to mordant the yarn. I'd buy the undyed yarn from the US, and then I'd go and I found all sorts of things to dye with turmeric root and madder and all sorts of different things that I could actually use over there to dye with. So I did this indie dyeing, this natural dyeing for myself, and then for a few others. And then I came back to Australia. We're only over there for a year. I came back to Australia, and I thought, okay, let's try this in a little Etsy shop. And so I was doing a little bit of that. And then I thought, natural dyeing tends to fade over time. The color changes. I've got one pair of socks that I dyed about 10 years ago out of turmeric root, and they're vibrant yellow. But now they're kind of like this washed out browny orange color. And so I thought, I probably can't really sell that to people. They might not understand that this is going to change over time, and they spent hundreds of dollars on this beautiful sweater worth of pink yarn, and all of a sudden it's gray. So I switched over to landscapes dyes, and soon after that I decided I needed something that wasn't pouring as many chemicals down the drain and things. So
very good.
I switched to greener shades dyes, which I love. But there's only 9 colors in greener shades dye, so you have to mix everything. That's it. You just get 9 colors. You don't get 100 different colors like you do in some of the other dye brands. So that's what launched me into indie dyeing, and I haven't looked back. And that was in 2008.
And when did you? Because you do it full time now, right?
I do now, yeah. I took it on full time when we moved to Gympie for my husband's work. I was working full time and trying to do dyeing as well at night, on the weekends, and doing that like a lot of indie dyes start out.
Yeah.
And when we moved up here, I said to my husband, look, I'm so busy. What do you think? Should I try doing it full time? What do you think? And he said, yeah, why not? Give it a shot. He's so supportive. He's very great. Yeah. So, and so I did, and it just, it's just fantastic. It's just got bigger and bigger, and we went wholesale to, we've got we had 7 or 8 shops around. I think we've still got about that number. A few new inquiries recently.
Only in Australia, or are you wholesaling overseas?
No, there's one in Texas that's just ordered over there. So that's good. And there's another one.
USA folks, you can get it from some store in Texas.
You can. Absolutely, yes. They're called Roots and Boots.
Roots and Boots. I'll write that down, and I'll give them a plug on that.
Yeah. So I think they've got it launched now. They ordered very early, and then they were going to sort of get it launched. And but we have it in quite a few places around. So.
Oh yeah, cool. All right. So you may have answered some of it in the question, but how do you choose your colours? Because you were kind of saying you like
these days. I think I put out a newsletter at the beginning of this year. At the end of last year, I was getting a bit despondent with because it got so big, and we were doing a lot of wholesale orders and custom orders, and it got to the point where I felt like I was just working in a factory, and it wasn't that artistic outlet that I needed, that creativity that I needed. So it was just sort of like go down. It was just dyeing colors, and it was looking up the recipe and repeating the recipe over and over again. So at the beginning of this year, I decided that I would wind that back, and I'd go back to a more creative sort of a feel where I literally just go down to my dye studio and throw color at yarn, and it's just what comes out. And I sometimes have a plan in mind. I looked at the shelves in my yarn. I've got a yarn room inside the house with all my yarn sort of set out, and some people come and they shop from here. And I had a plan in mind to go down and dye some browns one day. I looked on my shelf and I thought, I've got nothing in browns and grays, like everything was pink and purple. And I thought, okay, I'll go down and I'll dye that. Well, I think that day, going down there to dye all these browns, and I ended up with pinks and blues, and because that's just what inspired me. So it's really just what's in my head or how I'm feeling. Colors are very emotional things, so I think it's just how I'm feeling sometimes. And I do collections where I will find specific photos, like we did a bird collection, and we did a coral collection, and I'll find photos of birds, and then we release it as a collection, and it's usually like just a one-off color. Once that's sold out, it's gone. And they were really popular, and we did say we were going to do those again this year. We just haven't got to that at this point yet.
And you do those which I always purchase, the advent calendars where they're kind of like
always advent calendars. Yes, and there's been a few indie dyers that are sort of advertising advent calendars and selling them already. And I've had people contact me saying, "Are you doing one this year? Are you doing one this year?" And I said, "Yes, we are." And we are working with a very large designer who I can't reveal just yet, unfortunately. You could have had a scoop.
Oh no.
I know. Anyway, we're working with a designer who's designing a pattern for us, and has the colorways laid out in a specific order that they want. And they're using last year's advent calendar as a shade sort of a thing. And then once once that designer is releasing a mood board. There's a mood board that they've given me already, and I'll put that sort of together. And then we're doing a mood board. So there will be 2 mood boards, because like last year we did 4 mood boards, and we did like summer, autumn, winter, spring, and people chose which one they wanted. And this year we're just doing 2 because 4 is huge. But this year we're just doing 2. So the designer is doing a mood board which will be called Silent Night. And then we're doing a mood board which will be called Merry and Bright. So hopefully it'll suit everybody, because there'll be sort of like maybe cool colors in one and warm colors in the other. This one may be a little more toned down. This one will be a bit brighter, you know, so maybe it'll suit everybody, we hope. And this year we'll be releasing 100 calendars. So every year so the first year we started off with 20, and we thought that killed us. But we've grown smarter. We're working smarter, not harder, and we've learned how, you know, like how to do the packaging a little easier, because it's the packaging that's the biggest work.
Yours is I love yours. It came in a little box, because I ordered last year 3, right? So I went I ordered one from yourself. I ordered the summer one, and which I do have some of it in my top, in my
good. In
my advent calendar tee that I created, and then I ordered one from a Canadian dyer, and also Misfit Yarns from USA, and they all came differently. And that's where I kind of came up with the idea where I'd make this top, because I just chose the day one of each person's.
That's a good idea.
So for example, this color here was Misfit Yarns, and then this blue was yours, and then the white was the other, the Canadian dyers. And then I just did it in order, and I still have some of it. I still have some of it left.
Okay.
But, which I will create another one. But I am guilty. I purchased one this week from a UK dyer. And I'm about to purchase another one today after I get off here, because she's closing at April. And then maybe yours. And then that will do me.
3 again. Oh, well done. So we always release them to our newsletter subscribers first, because you know, they subscribe and they listen to me sort of ramble on every now and again. Mind you, we only send a newsletter about every 2 or 3 months. I'm very slack at that. But anyway, we always offer them to that. So we're going to offer probably 3/4 of them to newsletter subscribers first, and they always just sell out like within the first day. They're just gone. And then we will offer the other 1/4 of them, so 25, 30, whatever, on social media.
Yeah, cool.
So, and generally we always keep one back for a giveaway as well. So I kept one back for myself last year, and then ended up giving it to this designer to knit with. So that's fine. So I probably would never have got it knit up anyway, but I just like to keep them. Occasionally when I dye a yarn and I just really, really love it, it happens to fall into personal stash. I keep saying it's for my retirement. So we'll see how we go. Whenever that is.
Oh yeah. And you're probably like me, we have so much yarn. I won't be around to knit it, but I just keep getting it. And with Woolswap as well, I keep getting
Woolswap and the big yarn show. I always go on and buy from other indie dyers as well. And I just keep, you know, I'm so busy knitting my own yarn so that I've got samples for people. Because is
that something you're wearing today? What are you wearing today?
This is the Huey cardigan from Libby Johnson, Truly Myrtle, and it's in natural merino silk yak, just a natural colour. I haven't dyed this one. But it's a great little cardigan. Yeah, it's a little fingering weight one, so it's good for our climate. It's a bit, it's not cold here today, but the wind is a bit chilly, so I've just popped this on. So,
I'm knitting a cardigan at the moment, and I'll show you when we get to what you're working on. Okay, so what makes your yarns unique, do you think? You were mentioning, you know, you were trying to get away from what everyone, there's a lot of indie dyes out there, and some of the yarns
we did that. I found last year at the big wool show, you know, we participated, and we had a lot of salespeople who were just wonderful, and then after it sort of got to the last day, and I thought, oh, I'll go on and I'll have a look myself, and I'll go to the other Indie Dyer shops and support them and buy some of their yarn for my retirement stash. And I did. And then, but what I found out was we were all selling the same stuff. Like we were all selling the Merino 85 15, you know, which is our Lux sock. And I thought, well, I can dye that myself. I wanted something different. So I did. I found Indie Dyers that had different yarn. I bought different yarns. So like, for instance, I don't really carry anything that's got a lot of alpaca in it, except for like our Makers Clubs has got an alpaca coming up. I think it's next month we've got the alpaca. So I try to sort of buy things that I can't just dye myself, because I can go down and dye whatever color I want. And then I realized, well, maybe other people are looking for the same thing. Maybe people want different. So we started to expand our yarn bases, but now I think we've got to the point we've got so many. So I'm going to scale it back a little bit and just keep, I don't know how many I've got. I think we've got 14 or 15 yarn bases now. So I may scale that back to.
I think it's great to be able to have a choice.
It is. It is.
I actually had one of my wool swappers in the current round is a vegan, and I actually purchased some bamboo, I think, off you just recently.
Oh, yeah.
Going to go. And but before she contacted me, I'd be like, oh, I don't know, I just knit with wool. Like, you know, I've never heard of knitting with anything else. But it opened my eyes, and there's actually quite a few out there. But I went straight to your site because I knew you kind of had some vegan stuff there. So so that's very important, I think, because we do forget about.
We have some vegan. It's a different dye process, and it's a lot longer. It's a lot longer dye process. It's completely different dye process. It's different dyes. It's dyed in cold water, not the hot water that the wool dyes are dyed in. It takes endless rinsing, endless rinsing. So for the environment, it's not great. You just rinse and rinse and rinse and rinse. And of course, it's not the greener shades dyes. So it's all chemical dyes. And then you use these chemicals to get the dye out of the yarn, the excess dye. And even then, you know, you send this yarn off to somebody knowing that it's probably going to bleed a little bit for the first couple of washes because the water just didn't run clear, you know. So it's not my favorite, and I probably won't continue to keep it in stock, which is why it was on sale. And I think there's maybe a couple of skeins left. You grabbed it, but I have knit out of it. It's the one I think you were talking about, the vegan yarn, is a bamboo linen blend, I think it was.
Yes.
And it's lovely to knit with. It's not crunchy and stiff. It's actually really, and I've knit myself a little blue top, like a summery top out of it, and it's great. And when you wear it, it's just very breezy, very cool to wear. Like we get quite hot and humid, so lovely.
Hopefully the wool swapper, where it's going,
she'll love it.
Going overseas. It's going over to the other side of the world. So hopefully she'll like it. But that's cool. Yeah. Okay, all right. Let's get down to what are you knitting on? You're a knitter, like you said before. Knitter, crochet.
Yeah, I am a knitter. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about the other question, when you said what makes your yarn unique, most of our yarn's Australian. Like not all of it, but most of our yarn is Australian merino. And so we sort of try and use as much Australian yarn as we can.
Yeah.
And I've written to the mills, and I have email replies that it's on non-mulesed sheep flocks too. Excellent. And keep an eye on the farmers. So that's something that was kind of important to us, but it's really important to a lot of our international customers. They really don't understand why Australians mules their sheep. They've obviously never seen a fly blowing sheep and what it can do. But it's a contentious issue. And so we figured, well, we could just sort of go with the flocks that aren't mulesed and see how we go from there. So that was one thing. But what we're working on, I've got two things. Well, I've actually got about 3 projects on the go at the moment, and I only ever work on one thing at once. Well, I only ever work on one thing at once, so
oh my god,
I'm a bit stressed.
I've got about I've got 10. I've got about 10 on the go.
Oh, I can't do that because I like to get it done. I like to finish something, like accomplish it. But at the moment, and I've just had it on my Instagram, so I've just done this hand spun. I don't know if you can see that if I bring that
Oh, yeah.
forward.
Yep.
And I've been hand spinning. I learnt that back in Qatar as well on a drop spindle. So I've been hand spinning for 10, 12 years, but I spin literally once or twice a year. So I still think I'm a beginner. So I'm actually very proud of what I've done here.
Excellent. Well done.
And holding together, it's not breaking, which is important. And so what I'm doing is I've only just started. I started at knit night last night. I'm doing a little shawl, and it's Broken Wings shawl by Jorge Locatelli, and it's a beautiful little shawl. It's just a little one skein shawl, but the reason I'm doing that is because I'm a member of the Gympie Spinners and Weavers group, and we have our annual Gympie show coming up in a couple of weeks, and that's got to be an entry. And
cool.
Look, I'm nowhere near as good as the girls there, but it's just another entry in the cabinet. So it's probably not going to get anything, but I just thought it's a participation thing. So I'm participating, and I've got to try and spin another skein and put in as well. I think I've entered 3 categories, and I've got a week to get them done. So we'll see how we go.
Are you going to finish that shawl in a week?
Apparently. I'm going to go do some knitting when I finish this. We'll see how we go. It's actually quite a simple little, it's just a little one skein shawl. So I'll just see how we go. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I've got until next Wednesday night, I think, to hand it in at knit night. But at a pinch, I think I can hand deliver it the following Saturday. So that might give me 8 or 9 days instead of just 6. We'll see how we go. And the other thing I'm working on at the moment, which people have probably also seen in my Instagram feed, is this one here.
That looks amazing.
This is my big pink fluffy marshmallow, I call it. I don't know what it's going to look like. We'll see how we go.
It's going to look amazing. I love it.
It's a waffle sweater. It's called the Waffle Sweater.
I love it.
The designer is, just let me have a look. It's Pernille Larsen. It's on Ravelry.
Okay.
Just let me get rid of that so I can see you again. Yeah, so it's just done with three strands of mohair held together. And this is one of my hand-dyed ones. This is in, what's it called? Pretty in Pink, it's called. Yeah, and it's just, I wish you could feel it. It's so soft and squishy.
It looks like, oh my God. So,
I know.
So with the 3 strands, does that make it kind of like a DK or not quite?
Oh, look, I wouldn't really know. It's hard to say with mohair. More of maybe a sport weight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's
not going to be too hot.
It's like 5mm needles or something that I'm knitting it on. So it's quite open, and it'll be warm because of the mohair, but you can see the holes in it.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and how sort of open and breezy it is. And I know I've seen some photos on Instagram where people have held it up to the light, and you can sort of see all this light sort of going through it like a curtain, and it looks really lovely. But this is my Bendigo sweater. So I'm going to Bendigo this year.
Oh, wow.
And not as a vendor, just because I love Bendigo.
That would be on my bucket list to go to Bendigo.
Yes. It's lovely. You should come one year, Gail. It's really good. I've only ever been once myself, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's
you didn't want to be a vendor, or?
I think it's pretty hard to get in to be a vendor. I think it's something that, you have to sort of wait for a while, and it's just getting all the stock down there. Maybe one year I'll do that. I don't know. I've got quite a few different vending shows to come up this year, but we don't usually do very many. Oh, we've had a visit from the puppy. Would you like to have a look? This is Jessie, everybody.
Hi, Jessie. Oh, g'day, Jessie. Oh, so cute.
Where are you? She's just wondering who I'm talking to.
Excellent.
Yeah, so hello. Yes, hello. Oh, gosh.
All right, I'll show you what I'm working on. I unfortunately don't have anything on the go with your yarn. Sorry.
That's all right.
So I mainly knit socks, but I've been getting into knitting these short-sleeved tops, scrappy tops. Anything scrappy I like. But anyway, I've got an all hog, and I'm knitting something with the one colour. Oh. And I'm knitting this. I'll try and put it the right way. It's a cardigan.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of like this broken honeycomb stitch.
Yeah.
When you stretch it out, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
can see that.
it's called Mom May by Pippin Pin, which I think her name is Megan No Decker, I think. I'll put a
Okay.
link. I'll put a link down below. Sorry, but it's been taking me forever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and hopefully I'm really naughty. I never swatch, so I
Yeah.
hopefully it's gonna be stretch out and fit okay. But yeah, I've been plugging along at it, and I've had it on the needles for way too long. So that's what I've been working on. And I do have some
Funny
socks.
story. Every time I swatch, things end up too small. When I don't swatch, I usually wing it. But when I
Yeah.
swatch and I get very conscientious and decide I'm going to swatch for a garment, it's always too small. So swatches lie.
And then if I get like the right fit, I'll just knit that pattern again.
Yes.
Change it around a little bit. I've learned to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you learn to knit?
Yeah, that was from my grandmother and my mum. They always knit in front of the TV at night, and actually I learned like all crafts from my mum. Mum was just very crafty, and so embroidery. Can you hear my birds? Well, it's
Yeah,
not my birds, the wild birds.
yeah, they're
A couple
lovely.
of parrots around, some
Yeah.
rosellas.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we've got I did card making, stamping, scrapbooking, embroidery. Mum was in the Australian Embroiderers Guild years ago, and she used to go off to meetings and come back with some new technique every week, and knitting and a little bit of crocheting. I can crochet. I don't crochet very much because I've got a bit of arthritis in my wrists, and it just doesn't like it. So knitting's better for me. I love crocheted embellishments, and at the moment I'm very keen to do some embroidered embellishments on something knitted. So
yeah, that would be cool.
yeah, I just love that. So it's been interesting me for a few years now, and I've noticed that it's actually coming out in a few patterns lately, and I thought, oh, okay then, yep. So but it would be really nice. Yeah, so they taught me how to knit, and I knit. Actually, there's a story. We traveled around. Mum and Dad decided that we're going to travel around Australia in a caravan.
Yay.
For a couple of years. They decided they were going to do the big lap. Yeah.
Oh,
and so
how
I
old
was
were
in
you?
school. I was in high school.
Fantastic.
Actually, no, I think I was in the early primary school, early high school, and then as they went around, got older. So when we lived in Darwin for a year, and then they decided they'd do the centre right down from, right down through Katherine and through Alice Springs and right down to Cooper Pedy in South Australia.
Yeah.
And it was dirt road then. This is back in this was just after Cyclone Tracy. So this was probably about 70, I don't know, 75. No, it would have been about 79 maybe.
Yeah.
Went down through there. And so as we were traveling down very slowly in the old Land Rover over the corrugation like this, as we were going south, it was getting colder and colder and colder. So I decided I had to knit myself a jumper. So by the time we got from Darwin to Cooper Pedy, I had knit myself a jumper. I think I was about 13 or 14 years old.
Oh, wow, cool.
I thought, how did I knit it that fast? But I suppose I was just sitting in the back knitting, and it was probably a DK. I can't even remember what I knit. I just remember that story that I knit as I was going down. And so I knit for a little while in my early teens, and then I gave it up for a while. And then when I had children, I knit for my children. And then when I went to Qatar, as I say, I took it up again, came back to Australia. I started knitting things like cushions for the lounge and living in the tropics, you don't need a lot of knitwear.
No.
And then throws for the lounge and things like that. And then when I started dyeing, well, now I just can't keep up with how many projects I've got in my Ravelry queue.
Me too.
I knit every night.
I have a similar story. My grandma and my mum. So I grew up in New Zealand. My mum actually is originally from Ayr in North Queensland.
Oh, yes.
She went to visit her pen pal when she was 21 and went to New Zealand and did like backpacking back in the day. And then she ended up meeting my dad's sister and they hooked up. And so she lived there. And then my dad was a farmer. So she got thrown into like farming life and then thought, oh, I'm going to have to make clothes or knit for my kids. So she taught herself. Well, my grandma taught my mum, and then mum taught me. So yeah, around the same age, about 8, and then I knitted from 8 till teens, and then gave it up. And it wasn't till probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I started getting on social media and saw all these hand knitted socks and all this indie dyed yarn, because I'd never heard of indie dyed yarn before. I was like, what's that?
Right.
Yeah. And I joined a sock club where you got a pattern and a skein of yarn each month. I think I did that for 6 months. And then, I got hooked, and now I have way too much yarn, and our unit isn't big enough.
I love knitting socks, and you just need one skein of yarn, and it's, to me, one skein of yarn, usually one skein of fingering weight yarn, I say it takes me about 2 weeks to knit. So I always figure that, okay, you're going to pay about $30, $32 or whatever for that one skein of yarn, Australian dollars. And, but that's going to last you a couple of weeks. And so really, on a daily basis, that's actually not too bad a price, like for a hobby.
I never looked at it like that.
Prices. We do, yeah. And then, like we've got some lace weight in our shop, and it's very, very fine lace weight, like for Shetland lace or something. And it's 1,200 meters in one skein, in 100 gram skein. But Libby Johnson's got a shawl. I think it's called Vila shawl. And it just takes this one, it's a great big rectangular shaped shawl, but it just takes one skein of this yarn, and it would take me 1,200 meters. Take me a couple of months to knit that.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's about $1 a day hobby. That's not bad.
I don't hear around the community, the yarn community, too many people complaining about the price of indie dyed yarn, because
I think our prices in Australia are pretty good.
They all know how much work goes into creating something. So
that's right.
Everyone's happy to pay it. Well, I certainly am anyway.
And it's not just dipping the dye, the yarn, and you've got to dry it and skein it and label it. And then there's all the website background stuff. And, we don't have shop overheads, but we have overheads with website fees and other things.
Full-time job, right?
It is a full-time job, yes. But one I love. I can't complain because I do love it. So, yeah.
And that leads us into, what do you do in your downtime?
My gardening. I do gardening. I love to garden. I grow vegetables. I have chickens who I thought might wander up and see how we're going too, but they're not. They're keeping their distance. And that's pretty much what I do. It's more gardening. There's not a lot of downtime when you just my daughter is involved in the business as well, but she lives in Brisbane, so she's a good hour and a half from me. And we have our business meetings on the Sunshine Coast, so we meet halfway and we'll exchange yarn and plan the advent calendars in a cafe. You often see us sitting in a cafe, doing all our planning with our computers. And we get our there's a cafe in Bly called Been There Done That we meet in occasionally. And they've got a lovely coffee table, and all our advent calendar photos were taken on that coffee table a couple of years ago. So and we just spread it all out, and the guys just kind of look at us and smile. All our yarn everywhere all over this coffee table in the cafe. So they're great guys there. And it's just fun.
Oh, well, you look like you're having a good time doing it. You're pretty happy, so.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. Well, it's nice to work from home. No matter what you do, it's nice to work from home. Yeah, you put a load of washing on, and you can go. I go down to the dye studio. Do you want to see where my dye studio is?
Go to dye studio.
Okay, so it's down the back. I share the shed down there. Can you see that with my hubby? So he's got half, and I've got half, and I've set it up as a dye studio down there.
Oh, that's perfect.
And it's really nice.
Outside of the house, I've seen some of your little I've seen some of your little short videos you doing your dyeing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, just showing people what happens behind the scenes. Yeah, I think it's fun. Yeah, people love to see what's going on, how you do it, and it's nice.
Oh, cool.
Helps me connect with people too.
Oh, well, I guess we'll leave it at that. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and chat on Woolswap Chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't heard of Cheryl's yarn before, make sure I'll put a link to her store and you go and check it out. And yeah, and what I'll do is I will catch you all next time, and just stay tuned to see who I'll be chatting to.